Most people believe being a good person is the highest path. They think morality, kindness, and virtue are guarantees of respect, love, and safety. But history and Machiavelli tells a far harsher truth. The world doesn't reward goodness. It rewards effectiveness. From politics to business, relationships to personal power, those obsessed with being good often find themselves exploited, overlooked, or outmaneuvered. Good intentions do not shape reality, results do. And the harshest lesson of all is this: morality without strategy is vulnerability. Machiavelli didn't teach cruelty for its own sake. He taught clarity. He showed that life is a game of perception, influence, and calculated action. The strong survive not by pleasing everyone, but by understanding human nature, mastering emotion, and acting with wisdom even when it conflicts with conventional virtue. This isn't an argument to abandon empathy or compassion. It's an invitation to rise above the naive moral scripts that keep most people weak. To stop being a slave to what society calls good and instead become a master of what works. Because the moment you stop trying to be good in the world's eyes and start being wise in reality, you step into a power almost nobody dares to claim. 1. Morality is often a trap. Machiavelli's insight was simple, brutal, and uncomfortable. The world does not operate on intentions. It operates on consequences. Goodness, in its conventional sense, is often a liability, a leash that ties you to the expectations of others while leaving you vulnerable to those who play without conscience. Most people are obsessed with appearances of virtue. They believe that being kind, honest, and good will protect them, earn them loyalty, or secure their future. But life rarely works that way. The world is indifferent to morality. It rewards results. The kind man who never acts decisively is powerless. The honest man who refuses to bend rules is exploited. The compassionate man who cannot detach is taken advantage of. Machiavelli argued that morality without strategy is like a sword without a hand. It has no force, no precision, no ability to defend itself. The obsession with being good blinds people to reality. They become predictable, soft, and easily manipulated. Their heart guides their action. But the world doesn't respond to heart. It responds to skill, insight, and adaptability. This isn't a call to cruelty. It's a call to clarity. The trap of morality is not that it is wrong. It's that it is incomplete. Goodness without wisdom is weakness. Compassion without discernment is a weapon turned against yourself. In every arena of life, business, relationships, politics, even personal growth, those who survive and thrive understand one thing: outcomes matter more than intentions. Machiavelli's lesson is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront your illusions. You've been trained to believe that moral purity will protect you, that doing what's right is enough. But the world has no loyalty to righteousness. It respects power, cunning, and the ability to act decisively when circumstances demand it. The truly powerful navigate morality like a tool, not a rule. They act with ethics when it serves strategy and dispense with them when the world requires clarity over comfort. They understand the difference between being moral and being effective, and they never confuse the two. If you cling to morality as a shield, you will find yourself pierced by those who do not. If you wield morality as a tool, you gain freedom. You are no longer bound by the expectations of others. You move through life with authority. You do not wait for permission. The trap of morality is subtle. It whispers, if you are good, you will be safe. But Machiavelli teaches that the opposite is true. Safety comes not from virtue, but from awareness, strategy, and the courage to act in alignment with reality, not your conscience alone. The moment you understand this, you begin to step out of the cage that goodness has built around you. You stop being a pawn in the game of others' expectations. You stop believing that approval is survival. And in that freedom, power emerges quietly, silently but undeniably, like the shadow of a blade at your side. Morality is not the enemy. Naive morality is. And recognizing the difference is the first step toward mastery. 2. Virtue is contextual, not absolute. Machiavelli shattered the comforting illusion that virtue is universal. He didn't dismiss morality. He redefined it. He argued that good and bad are not absolutes. They are tools, shaped by context, circumstance, and consequence. What serves survival in one moment may be destructive in another. And yet most people live as if virtue were a fixed law, as if rigid morality alone could protect them from life's storms. Rigid moral codes simplify reality. They draw straight lines in a world that is jagged, chaotic, and unpredictable. They tell you, always act this way, never do that, and yet life rarely respects simplicity. A decision that is good in isolation may lead to ruin when applied without awareness. The world doesn't operate on absolutes. It operates on nuance, strategy, and timing. Machiavelli's brilliance lies in exposing this truth. Survival and influence demand adaptability. The strong do not blindly follow moral rules. They bend, break, or redefine them when necessary. They understand that virtue is not a costume to wear, but a language to speak fluently, one that shifts depending on the listener, the moment, and the desired outcome. Consider leadership. A ruler who is kind to a crowd may be exploited by enemies. A general who spares a traitor may invite rebellion. The good choice in isolation may destroy the state. Machiavelli doesn't encourage cruelty for cruelty's sake. He encouraged discernment, the ability to act ethically in alignment with reality, not dogma. This principle applies beyond politics. In business, relationships, and personal growth, strict adherence to a rigid moral framework can be disastrous. Compassion without discernment, honesty without strategy, generosity without calculation, all of these can create weakness. Context determines whether virtue builds influence or invites ruin. Yet, this is not a rejection of morality. It is a call to wisdom, to see the difference between acting ethically in principle and acting effectively in practice, to recognize that true mastery comes not from blind adherence to codes, but from understanding the world well enough to know which rules serve your purpose and which must be set aside temporarily for the greater outcome. Machiavelli forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. When does honesty harm? When does kindness betray strength? When does morality become a prison rather than a compass? The truly powerful do not live in absolutes. They navigate life's complexity with fluidity, choosing actions that serve survival, influence, and impact. Virtue is not a chain, it is a tool. Context is the key that determines whether it protects you or imprisons you. And once you understand this, the world stops being a place of black and white. It becomes a battlefield of strategy, where the wise act decisively, unshackled by rigid morality, yet never unmoored from reality. Virtue is not absolute. It is flexible. It is strategic. And in that flexibility lies power. 3. Appear good, act strategically. Machiavelli understood a truth most people refuse to face. The world judges what it sees, not what exists beneath the surface. Your intentions, no matter how pure, are meaningless if they are invisible or misunderstood. Power and influence flow not from virtue alone, but from the perception of virtue. Appearances are not deception for deception's sake. They are instruments of clarity and survival. Machiavelli argued that a leader who is seen as just, kind, and moral gains trust, loyalty, and compliance, even if, behind the scenes, he acts strategically to preserve his position. The lesson is uncomfortable but unavoidable. People respond to signals, not truths. Most people fail because they assume goodness is enough. They believe honesty, kindness, or moral purity will shield them from betrayal, competition, or adversity. But life doesn't reward morality in isolation. It rewards results and those who understand how to craft perception to protect themselves and advance their goals. Strategy and morality are not opposites. You can remain ethical in your core principles while presenting a front that ensures safety, influence, and continuity. Machiavelli teaches that the wise don't abandon care, empathy, or justice. They time, direct, and frame them. Appearances become armor, loyalty a tool, and perception a weapon. Consider a general, a CEO, or a political leader. Their reputation allows them to operate with latitude. Soldiers obey the commander perceived as fair. Employees follow the manager perceived as just. Citizens trust the ruler who appears principled. Behind that appearance, difficult, even ruthless decisions are made. Strategy is never cruelty for its own sake. It is action aligned with results, guided by foresight and tempered by image. Most people misunderstand this. They conflate strategic appearance with moral compromise. They assume that to act strategically is to abandon integrity. But Machiavelli clarifies, integrity is maintained in the mind of the actor. The world only interacts with the reality you project. Mastering that projection ensures survival and influence without abandoning principles entirely. This lesson is vital beyond politics. In business, relationships, and personal growth, your reputation shapes the opportunities available to you. People trust what they see. They respond to signals of competence, virtue, and reliability. By mastering perception, you protect your interests while keeping your core values intact. Appear good, act strategically. Influence flows where perception aligns with action, and power follows those who understand the subtle dance between morality and reality. The world may never see the purity of your intent, but it will respond to the power of your presence. Appear good, not for vanity, but for mastery. Act strategically, not for cruelty, but for survival. This is the silent art of power Machiavelli mastered, and it is a lesson almost everyone refuses to learn until life teaches it for them. 4. Emotions are weapons. Use them wisely. Machiavelli understood human nature better than most. People are driven by emotion, not reason. Fear, desire, love, envy. These currents shape decisions far more than logic or moral code ever could. The wise do not ignore emotion. They harness it. They treat compassion, kindness, and generosity not as obligations, but as tools, instruments to influence, protect, and advance their goals. Most people are slaves to their feelings. They react impulsively to praise or insult, love or anger, craving approval and avoiding discomfort. Machiavelli called this predictability a weakness. A man who cannot control his emotional responses is easily manipulated. A leader who cannot manage his own passions is at the mercy of those who can. Emotional transparency without strategy is vulnerability. Yet the lesson is subtle. The goal is not to become cold or cruel. The strongest actors in life do not abandon empathy. They wield it like a blade or shield. They give where influence is gained, withhold where authority is threatened. They smile when perception demands it, withdraw when discretion serves better. Every feeling becomes a signal, every gesture a calculated move. Consider a ruler calming a restless populace. Too much harshness sparks rebellion. Too much leniency invites disrespect. The skill is to feel, project, and apply emotion precisely, to inspire loyalty while maintaining power. Machiavelli repeatedly illustrated that unchecked or misapplied emotion leads to ruin. Generosity without purpose invites exploitation. Anger without timing invites revolt. Fear without direction invites chaos. Even personal relationships are governed by this truth. A man who gives freely from impulse rather than strategy is easily drained. A person who hides every feeling loses connection. The key is selective expression. Machiavelli teaches that mastery over the inner emotional landscape allows mastery over the outer world. Emotions are not weaknesses, they are weapons, but only when wielded consciously. Compassion can win allies. Kindness can build loyalty. Generosity can create influence. But wield them indiscriminately, and you become predictable, exploited, and powerless. Life does not reward sincerity alone. It rewards those who understand the patterns of human desire and fear. Machiavelli's insight is simple, yet terrifyingly precise. Control your emotions or they will control you. Use them strategically, and they become the very means of your strength. The strong do not hide their feelings, they command them. They do not ignore humanity, they navigate it, and in this navigation lies the edge between vulnerability and dominance. Emotions are weapons. Master them, or be mastered. This is the lesson that almost everyone refuses to learn until the world forces them to. 5. The ends often justify the means. Machiavelli's most controversial teaching has haunted moral thinkers for centuries. The ends often justify the means. It is uncomfortable because it forces us to confront the harsh truth. Results matter more than intentions. Doing what feels right is not always effective. Survival, influence, and legacy demand decisions that morality alone may never condone. Most people act as if virtue guarantees security. They cling to fairness, honesty, and kindness as if these shields will protect them from betrayal or failure. But Machiavelli observed that life is far more ruthless. A ruler who refuses necessary cruelty loses his state. A leader who sacrifices strategy for idealism loses his people. A man who prioritizes morality over results loses himself. Intention without outcome is powerless. This principle is not a license for wanton cruelty or chaos. It is a call to wisdom. Machiavelli teaches that moral dogma can blind you to reality. Compassion without discernment can invite disaster. Generosity without calculation can invite exploitation. The wise understand that ethical decisions are not made in isolation. They are made in context, with foresight and awareness of consequences. History is full of examples. The strongest leaders, generals, and thinkers have made choices that, by conventional morality, were harsh, but in hindsight preserved life, stability, and vision. They acted decisively, prioritizing survival, influence, or the greater good over personal comfort or societal approval. Their decisions were not cruel for cruelty's sake. They were strategic for enduring impact. Even in daily life, this lesson applies. Waiting for moral clarity before taking action can be disastrous. Protecting your reputation, your resources, or your progress often requires choices that feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you must say no, withdraw trust, or enforce boundaries that others will judge as harsh. Effectiveness often demands courage over comfort, foresight over sentiment. The ends justify the means, not because morality is irrelevant, but because wisdom is paramount. A life guided by results tempered with insight creates strength, influence, and freedom. A life guided by rules alone creates fragility, predictability, and loss. Machiavelli forces us to confront a fundamental question. Do we act to feel good about ourselves, or do we act to survive, influence, and master the world we inhabit? The answer defines whether we are pawns of circumstance or architects of destiny. Intentions are invisible. Outcomes are tangible. Mastery requires placing results above dogma, wisdom above comfort, strategy above sentiment. The moment you internalize this, morality no longer binds you blindly. It becomes a tool, applied with precision to serve your life, your vision, and your survival. The ends justify the means, not for cruelty, not for ego, but for mastery. And mastery is the reward that the naive and the moralistic rarely receive. Machiavelli never asked you to be ruthless. He asked you to be real. He understood what most people refuse to see, that morality stripped of awareness becomes a prison, that being good in a corrupt, manipulative, and unpredictable world often means being powerless. The true Machiavellian lesson isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the courage to see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be, and to act accordingly. It's the understanding that goodness without strength invites exploitation, and strength without wisdom invites destruction. You don't stop being moral to become powerful. You integrate morality with strategy. You learn when kindness heals and when it weakens. You learn when honesty unites and when it exposes. You learn that every virtue has a shadow, and mastery means knowing when to step into it. To stop trying to be good is not to become evil, it's to become whole. Because true goodness isn't performance, it's precision. It's the ability to move through darkness with awareness, to play the game without being played. Machiavelli's wisdom remains timeless because it speaks to an eternal truth. Purity without power is fragility, but clarity, moral or not, is freedom. So stop trying to be good in a world that rewards strategy. Be wise, be awake, be dangerously clear. That is what it truly means to be human, to live with heart but rule with mind.